I have gone through, I guess, normal therapy. It was great. Like, it helped me through a lot. But something that I really admired about what you did is we were working together as a team. So say if I had an issue, it's not just talking about why the issue is presented, even though we did, but it was giving me the tools to handle that when it came up in my life.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. My name is Jessica. I'm your host of A Stronger You. And today's episode is so freaking special because I have a very special person on, and her name is Cameron Coyer, aka Cam. Welcome, Cam.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. So Cam is one of the most amazing souls that I know. And we had the pleasure working together one-on-one for how long? 3 months?
3 months, yep.
Her transformation was absolutely insane. And we're going to talk about it today. And we're going to talk about a bunch of things. So we're just going to dive right in. Does that sound good?
Let's do it.
Before we do that, let's talk a little bit about Cam. So Cam, I would love if you could just share a little bit about yourself, about your business, where you're at in your life.
So definitely not a regular job. I don't think I do anything regular. I live in Ithaca, New York. I went to school here, and now I'm currently in school to become a dietitian. I'm doing a distance program through a college in Allentown. So yeah, I'm in a combination program right now. I'm working towards my master's and becoming an RD. So that's a lot, but I also run a business in my basement. It's an embroidery business where it's all revolved around dogs. I have 2 dogs, a Rottie and a Lab. They are my entire life. Like, I'm that person that just dedicates my life to my dogs. So I started this little business, and it's been such a learning lesson, teaching me the ins and outs of business, but also doing something really creative, because how I got into nutrition and where I was looking to go to be a dietitian was I was a boxing coach and a strength coach. So obviously, like, the fitness and nutrition stuff ties in. And boxing is amazing. It's great for physical and mental health, but it's really intense. And so embroidery was kind of like my creative outlet that was just a little bit chiller. So that's been a really fun learning experience for the business and getting my brain to not be on that like high intensity all the time.
And it's so interesting because when Cam came to me, we had so many similarities, especially the boxing.
Yes, that was my first huge draw.
Yeah. And so let's just like dive right in. So I'm curious, like, why did you seek me out? Why did you come to me, or why did you attract me into your life?
So I have gone through, I guess, normal therapy, I could say, and it was great. Like, it helped me through a lot of big life events, but something that I really admired about what you did is we were working together as a team, and it was giving me something to work with. So say if I had an issue, it's not just talking about why the issue is presented, even though we did, but it was giving me the tools to handle that when it came up in my life. So something that I really loved that you were a female in boxing as well is because there was a few females at the gym that I was at, but it was mostly a male-dominated sport. So it was really cool to hear somebody else who understood the position that I was in as well, because you coach boxing, I coach boxing, and it's such a unique thing that you don't see often. And I followed a boxing girl on Instagram, and then that's actually how I found you, is because I'm pretty sure you work with her too. So yeah, we kind of got connected through the fitness side of it.
Yeah, which is absolutely crazy. Like, little side note, I think it was Lainey, right? Specifically?
Yes.
Yeah,
And I
so
like
shout
looked
out
up
to
to her for a long time. Yeah, shout out Lainey. Hi, Lainey.
Lainey. I started following her and I was like, wow, this girl's a badass. And then Cam came through, and like, I think it was like a mutual friend or something. And then she recruited me for a job opportunity with Nike. And I was like, whoa, this is just such a full circle moment. And I think it's so important, like, when someone's looking for a mentor or a coach or even a therapist, like, I'm not a therapist, but like even a therapist, I think it's so important to find someone who you feel some type of connection with, or else you're literally going to feel like you're talking to a brick wall.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I like being a female in the boxing industry is just so unique. And that's why when I saw Lainey, like, being such a badass. I was like, it was so inspiring. And then that's how I found you. And it was just like everything aligned in that way. So I knew we would connect before we even met. And then I remember our first phone call, it was in like the first 10 minutes. I was like, are you sure we're not related? I was like, I feel like we're so similar. I swear like our hair was the same and everything that day. It was like a jump scare.
Wait, we're literally both wearing black.
Yeah, both wearing black, and we had like long, dark, the kinky
Yeah.
hair. It was, yeah, it was
Oh,
crazy.
this is great. Yeah, yeah. So I love that. So I would love for you to talk about where were you like before we started compared to where you are now.
So the first thing I said to you that I wanted to work on was my confidence in I was coaching for a while at that point. I think it was about 3 years. And I definitely had my confidence when I was putting on the show kind of within that hour. But it was like after I would leave, I was second guessing myself. And then I would be changing my coaching style because I was like, oh, maybe that person didn't necessarily align with what I was saying. And I was just second guessing myself so much that it was making my job double the work, where you really have shown me, and then the person I am now, it's I know what I'm doing, I'm confident in what I'm doing, and that has set me up for success walking into a room. And the anxiety portion of it after I leave the room has lessened. It's definitely not gone, it's always going to be there, I think, but it's so much more manageable and controllable now that I just have that confidence that I'm proud of myself for being able to do what I do. So yeah, the confidence is definitely huge now.
Yeah, like I remember one of the biggest things, like you just said, was before we started working together, like for you to stand up in front of a room and just speak what was on your heart and how you really felt, or if you were having a conversation with, let's say, another colleague or someone in business, you at before we worked together, it like how did that like how was it speaking to someone? And then how is it now speaking to someone?
Yeah, I think definitely being in nutrition, and I'm very conscious of not being that person that's a know-it-all. And I mean, when I first got into fitness, was that classic person that was like, I know everything. And then it quickly made me realize that I had so much to learn. And so now being in nutrition and like working towards becoming an RD, I'm very conscious of not being that know-it-all, but being confident with what I do know, is because I put in the work to learn and I'm confident in how I've learned it. So when I am talking to colleagues now, it's a conversation. We are two adults talking to one another. That power dynamic that I always felt, where even if they were younger than me, I would have this feeling like I didn't know as much as them. So now I'm able to talk to a colleague or a classmate or anybody, and it's just two adults having a conversation. So being able to take that power dynamic away has been huge for me.
And what would you say was the straw that broke the camel's back, like from doing the work together? Like, if you had to pinpoint something that you learned with working with me or that you discovered within yourself from like doing the deep inner work, what would you say that was?
I make this joke to Jess all the time. I say I always have like a little Jess on my shoulder, and she has reminded me I do not need to explain myself to anybody. And yes, when I'm counseling somebody or I'm working with somebody, I'm explaining the movements or the program that we're talking about. But I always felt the need to explain the reason why I was telling them that, or like the reason I made a decision to do something. And then that kind of goes back to what I said, where I was putting in double the amount of time into something because I just felt that constant need to explain myself to get someone to understand where I was coming from. Where now I deliver the information because I know what I'm talking about. And if I don't, I'm also okay with saying, I don't 100% know this, but let's talk about it and figure it out together.
Yeah, oh, that and like that must feel so good because like I'm just imagining the first version of yourself that you were speaking about. Like that takes a lot of energy of like just having to explain yourself.
Yeah.
And, like I feel like a reason for doing that could be because maybe we're not confident in what we're
Hmm.
talking about and or what
Absolutely.
we're sharing. And it's not like I gave you the confidence magic pill. Like you did the inner work, you showed up every week after week, and we went deep. And I feel like that was a big part of like all of this was going deep, discovering who you are, like to the core, discovering what you love to do, what lights you up with joy. And it's so interesting because I remember when we would hop on some of the calls, I'd be like, this call might go completely different than you think it's going to. We might
Mhm.
do one thing or we might do something completely different. Like, but everything is super duper intentional.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's so I'm very intentional with what I do now, and kind of circling back, like another thing about not having to explain myself is you really showed me that the people who you surround yourself with are going to set an example regardless if you mean it to or not. And I definitely realized I was surrounding myself with a lot of people that were kind of pushing me to have those anxious thoughts. Like it was just kind of like fueling the fire. Like, so it was just, so I kind of took a step back, and I really, when during our self-work time, like I really spent a lot of time alone and figuring out how I would respond to myself in those situations. Like I was constantly looking for that gratification from somebody else to tell me, "You're doing great. That's exactly what you're supposed to say." Whereas now I don't have to reach out to somebody and be like, "Oh my God, I had this feeling," and I don't know if it's like the anxious thoughts just like splurting out of my mouth, where now I'm able to like sit with myself and actually like have that mini conversation in my own mind to figure it out, which has been so huge because it's me with me for the rest of my life, you know? It's like I can't always rely on other people to give me that instant gratification.
Oh my gosh. I'm just like sitting here and I'm like, fuck yes, Cam. Like you've blossomed into such a such a I don't even want to say like different version of yourself, but like I do. It's like it's you 2.0. It's you
Mhm.
living a life that's more true to you. That's so authentic. That's just so like you to the core.
Yeah. And those anxieties that I was talking about would a lot of the time stem from if I was going to do something or I agreed to do something just because somebody else wanted me to do it and I didn't necessarily want to do it. And so now I'm so okay with saying no to people. If that's even as simple as like I'm so busy on a Thursday and I had dinner plans, like I could say to them, "Hey, I had a really busy day. I don't think I can make it to dinner tonight." Whereas before, I would just be like, "Oh, I have to go to dinner. I have to go to dinner." And it would just be like on my mind all day. And I would be getting so frustrated. Whereas now I'm like, it's okay. I could just say no and we could do it another time.
Yeah. And like I also want to like um bring to light, like specify that the reason why like you are where you are now isn't because like I gave you this advice. Like yes, that's part of it, but I brought you through questioning and certain tools and techniques so that you had the click yourself because people could tell us like all the things. Like someone could say, "Oh, let's say like you're at a toxic job." Someone can literally tell you you're at a toxic job, it's not good for you. And you could consciously be like, yeah, I know. But if we don't reprogram it at a subconscious level,
Mhm.
we're not going to make the change. And so that's why, like, I believe some of this work was so powerful is because you made that switch at a subconscious level. And so you don't have to wake up and like think about it. Like, was it easy? No, right? Was it easy? Like, there were some times where I feel like you didn't want to get on the call and you still
Yeah.
showed up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I shared with this before. Like, we would have homework at the end of our sessions, and especially like being busy with school and everything. I Here, I'll give an example. The one time you said, because I was having a hard time just finding those people who like to make those true connections with. And you just said to me, you're like, "I want you this week to reach out to 5 people." And initially I was like, "I can't think of 5 people. I don't have time." And I was just like immediately like so hesitant. And then I was like, "I don't even know if I can go on the call and admit to her that I didn't do this." And all those crazy thoughts. And then I was like, "Oh, but there's that one person I've been thinking about that I wanted to reach out to. So like, here's the time to do it." And I remember doing that. I reached out to the people after all of my thoughts being like, "No, no, no." And it was amazing. Like the responses that I got from them, it was just so nice to just do that little simple check-in. And so that taught me that there's sometimes lessons that you were teaching me or the universe will be teaching me where I initially wanted to just be like, "Nope, no way." But like you're saying, questioning and doing the inner work, like I was able to sit with it and think, okay, why is she making me do this? Not just she's making me do this because it's part of the program. Like there were so many intentions behind it, and that's what I think you really taught me is like look for the intention in what the work that you're doing.
Yeah. I love that. So I kind of want to like pivot a little bit, and I would love to talk about the anger and like the anger that you used to feel that is not there anymore. I would love if you could talk a little bit into that.
Yeah, so that is something with thinking back to boxing. Like, I loved that it was just such a release. When I first started doing it, when I wasn't coaching, like, it was just something I did for fun. And I think that was made, or I thought it was helping release that anger, where then I started to realize it was kind of fueling it because I just felt like, oh, I had this like beast mode all the time. And so I guess like use an example of like when I would be at the gym, at the boxing gym or whatever, like I would kind of have that like, I don't know, I would just feel like very in the zone or whatever. And then somebody would ask me a question or they would go against what I would say. And I would initially just be like, why are they going against me? Like, why can't they just listen to me? And I would just like immediately react thinking that they're asking me these questions because they don't agree or saying I'm wrong. And so I realized that anger was stemmed from insecurity. And I just thought I was this angry person all the time. And looking back even into like my undergrad or when I was in high school, like the way that I would react to things would be so strong and people would be like, wow, she could really speak her mind. But then it wasn't in a kind way. And so that confidence that we built has helped realize that that anger was 100% stemmed from my insecurities.
Yeah. So good. And why would you say it's confident? Like, I'm sorry, why would you say it's important for you, or why was it important for you, is what I'm trying to ask. Why was it important for you to get to that level of
I
confidence?
think for, I mean, my job specifically, when I go into become a nutrition counselor as a dietitian and like hopefully I get back into fitness coaching one day. I'm taking a little bit of a break right now, but I think that delivery of just no anger on the table no matter what. And like for example, when I would work with you and I would have one of those weeks where I felt like I couldn't get all the homework done, go in and I'd be like, oh my god, she's going to be so angry at me. Or not that you ever even displayed an ounce of anger, but the way that you would just be like, okay, like this is what happened, and then we would just talk through it, like having a normal conversation. And that was such a great example for me, is like it doesn't always need to be this like tit for tat in a conversation. Like you could genuinely just talk to somebody and understand that their reaction to something isn't exactly from you. So I think that is really important, that I'm able now to just, even if someone disagrees with me, I'm able to react calmly and just have a conversation rather than getting frustrated and angry and feeling like I need to explain myself so much.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, for the one who's listening, if you are someone who maybe can relate to the fact where you react versus respond, like none of this means that like there's anything wrong with you. All this can just open up some more windows of awareness for you to grow in certain areas. And sometimes things like that are literally there because of how we grew up. And our beliefs are stemmed from the things we inherited from when we were younger, from the people who raised us, or maybe the kids at school, because from the ages of 0 to like 7-ish, 8, are when our minds, our subconscious minds, are like a sponge. So anything that happens to us, anything that someone says to us, literally sticks to us like fucking glue.
Yep, absolutely.
And like it's so possible to break out of that and grow out of that.
Yeah. And I think another thing with the anger side of it, I felt the need to have control all the time. And we always discussed about like tapping into that feminine energy. And I was just thinking like, oh, I'm a business owner, I'm a coach, I like have to have that control aspect. So it was always just reaction, and that reaction coming from insecurity was just me trying to gain control of the situation so nothing can go wrong. Where I was honestly creating the wrong in that situation is because I was reacting and sometimes making something out of nothing.
Wow. And okay, so like I want to pivot again. I would love for you to talk about how working together and how doing this work, how it, for yourself, how it overflowed into your business and your relationship?
Yeah, so especially the reactivity is when I first started my business, like every time I would send something out, I would be so nervous that it wasn't perfect or they weren't going to like it. And I would prepare myself for people attacking me and me having a response to explain myself. Like I was putting so much energy into that, where now that confidence, I'm able to send stuff out and I know I'm like kind of manifesting that I'm going to have that good feedback. And especially like in my
And is that what's
relationship,
happening?
yeah, absolutely. I'm getting so much more, I'm getting better sales, I'm getting much more feedback. I'm able to work with people in a sense of if they want a certain order and it's not something that I necessarily do, we're able to collaborate and have a conversation and work together to build that rather than me just being like, nope, this is how I do it. And if you don't like it, then kind of
Yeah.
move on. So
Yeah,
it's
I
taught
love
me,
that.
yeah,
I was
it's
gonna say
taught
like
me
you
a lot.
focus. Sorry, we do
Go
that a
ahead.
lot.
No, yeah, your turn. Go ahead.
It's like a little delayed on my end too, but we're just working with it, the camera. Um, I love that you focused on the good because when you focus on the good, more good comes. It's the law of attraction. There's universal laws all about it. And when you focus on the bad or just expect and wait for like, oh, what if something bad happens? Let me prepare for the worst just in
Yeah.
case. That's what society is ingrained in our minds to do. Like I'm literally like that's like I love my mom to death. And if you're listening to this, mom, I love you. And she listens to like everything I do, which is great. But it's like something I, picked up from my mom is that hope she doesn't get mad for this. She won't. She loves me. But something that I picked up from my mom for this is like, oh, like God, like worst case scenario, like God, if like what if something happens? And it's like it's not my mom's fault. My mom learned it from her mom and their mom
Hmm.
and their like it's a ladder,
Yeah.
and it has ingrained into us from society. Like I'm sure the person listening to this, or maybe you could even relate to that.
Yeah, it's just setting us up to always feel like we need to defend ourselves. And that's where I'm a lot more comfortable now understanding that a lot of people are going to disagree with me. And I always say, even when I was fitness coaching, I would always start the session and I would say, let's see if we're a match. Because I was not that coach who was just going to accept somebody and just teach them whatever. Because if our styles didn't match, I don't believe that you're going to learn to the best of your ability. So, yeah, it's just much more authentic being not like feeling the need to explain yourself or like on that defense all the time to be like, my way is the right way. And if you stray from this, you're wrong or different.
Yeah, yeah, amen. And so, how would you say working together also strengthened your relationship? And what were some things that you like that just happened in that?
Yeah, so my boyfriend is so calm. He is such a calm person and when we first met, I was a coach at a corporate company, so I wasn't really doing things on my own. I was kind of like contracted in. And it was just the situations that I would have like such intense anger and anxiety about. Like he wouldn't even know where it was coming from. Like he would just be like, like he didn't get it. And so that was kind of like my first look into like maybe I am overreacting a little bit. And not that he ever made me feel like I was super dramatic or overreacting, but it was kind of like, oh, we could just kind of sit with this and figure it out rather than just having this huge explosion. So now, I mean, that we live together, it was like little things like put your dishes away. And then I would get so frustrated. And he actually taught me it's like there's going to be things that are going to bother you about me and vice versa. And it's just like learning to either deal with them or talk them through on a calm level. Like me saying, you got to put your dishes away isn't going to make them do it, you know? So I just think learning all of this has really helped me communicate in my relationship now. And if there is an issue, I don't go to that fight or flight mode where I'm like, okay, this issue is going to end my relationship and I'm out. Now I'm able to be like, relationships have issues. They're going to have issues. And we've had a ton. Like, he's helped me through one of the hardest points in my life, something I was going through with my family. And it's made us so strong because of our communication now, being able to be like, hey, I am having a shitty day and I don't want to talk about it. I just want you to sit next to me. And he's able to just be like, okay, like, this is what you need from me, and vice versa. And I mean, on the flip side of things, I think I was able to help him kind of realize that you can't just let everything go. You gotta sometimes face the hard issues. So we've really helped each other balance one another out in that. And so I'm thankful for him showing me that. And I know that he's thankful for me kind of putting that little confidence in him as well.
I love that so much. Wow. Well, bringing this like to an end, before we end it, I want to ask you one more thing. And I would love for you to share, I would love to know, what were your 3 biggest wins from working together?
I would say my first one is, especially in my business, I haven't really portrayed it on this podcast, but like, I'm such a goof. Like, everything is so sarcastic. I'm always joking. And I felt like when I was talking from my business platform, I couldn't be that way. So it was so inauthentic. And so one of the things is, being authentic in my business is going to attract the clients that I want and that I will benefit with working from. So yeah, being my authentic self in business and not having to think I need to like put on that suit jacket and become this like super professional businesswoman. Like, you could be professional and still say fuck. I mean, you showed me that. And that's something like my mom always said, like, she's always like, say what you want. Like, it's not like you're cursing at somebody. So yeah, I think that's been really awesome to see, is like, I'm able to just be my authentic self, and it's really boosting my business. The second thing is kind of like I already said, about who I'm surrounding myself with, and really being not, I guess selective is the word, like selective on who I'm around, is because I know I'm a very sensitive and I have that history of being super reactive. So if I'm surrounding myself with people who play into those reactive tendencies or always want to talk about anxiety or anxious thoughts, it's going to bring me back to that too. So as tough as it is, I've had to let go of some relationships, but it has given me back the brain power that I've missed oh so much. Like, I'm able to just put the energy into those little conversations with myself to figure things out. And then I would say the third thing is tap into that feminine energy and really understand why things are happening. And oh my gosh, this, like, to my heart, it's you, when I broke my foot, I remember I like texted you immediately and I was like, can you believe I just broke my foot? And you texted me back and you're like, so what do you think the purpose of you breaking your foot is? And I was like, who is this girl? I just broke my foot because I fell on the stairs. I was like, why is she asking this? And then I sat with it and I was like, I haven't been taking a break from school. I haven't been sleeping because I wasn't taking breaks. My business was not doing as well. My coaching side, like, I wasn't giving myself the break to be to the best of my ability. So me breaking my foot, as cliche as it is, one of the best things that happened to me, because it made me sit the fuck down. And I just sat there and I took that rest and I poured myself into school instead of thinking I need to be like here, 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 and here. And yeah, I'm still that like confident coach that I want to be, but I'm able to now ask for help and say, I need a break. I need a break, because if I don't take a break, the other things in my life aren't going to go that well.
Wow. That was amazing. Yeah. Wow. And the whole breaking your foot thing, that was, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember I said I was like making jokes about it. I was like just joking the whole time. And you're like, oh, I love your attitude. And I was like, oh yeah, haha. And then you were like, what's the purpose? And I was like, what do you mean, what's the purpose? I was like, I'm just making jokes about this. I'm like, there's no purpose. And then it ended up being like one of the best lessons. And I hope I never, ever, ever break my right foot again, because I couldn't drive. I was really glued to my couch. But I mean, sometimes the universe is just like, you got to sit down. Just sit down, take a break.
And I remember that was one of the things that came up, that, and you know, it was a lesson I learned too, is like, if you don't listen to the signs that the universe is trying to give you, they will make it the universe, the people in the universe, they will make it so damn obvious, and they might make you break your foot. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's crazy how things like that work, but it makes sense. And when we listen to it and ask, what is this teaching me? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most powerful questions ever, is what is it, even in friendships, like, what am I supposed to learn from this person? Am I like, why are they coming into my life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for sure. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's really just every single day now I have, like, I had this mentality that every single day needed to be perfect, and when one minor thing would go wrong, my whole day would be screwed. And now I'm realizing I can't just stop my whole day and stop my work day. Like, what is this teaching me? How is this going to benefit me? Like, for example, my dog just cut his paw pad, and it was like he had to sit, and then it was making like him be so anxious and all over the house and whatever. And like I used to just let that ruin my day. And I was like, no, this is teaching me to be a stronger dog mom, or like something as silly as that. Like, things I used to think were the end of the world are just a learning lesson for the next step.
Yes. Oh, that was such a, I love this so much. This was such a good
Me
podcast.
and Jeff have like
Uh,
the every time in our sessions. I love that when we do it. And we're like, just to the heart.
like, I really feel like I want to say this is like one of my favorite like podcasts that I recorded, and
Oh, I'm
just
so happy
hearing
you
you
did it.
talk, and like hearing all the wisdom and the things that just came out of your mouth were just so beautiful. And if anyone wants to see a beautiful version of someone living in their authentic self, who's running a very successful business while in school to get her master's, follow Cam. And first off, what are your social like media links so everyone can like come and support you and follow you?
So my little embroidery business is Axel Rue
Wait,
underscore.
hold up. Your what?
My successful business that I run on my own. The handle is Axelroo underscore. And then my dogs have their own Instagram where this all stemmed from. And that's Ruger.thesilverlab. So that's where you really get to see my silly self and all that sarcasm. And then my
Yeah.
personal page is just Cameron Coyer. But yeah, I'm way more active on Axelroo and my dog's page.
Yeah, if you love dogs, which I'm sure if you listen to my podcast, you do, and if you don't, I'm not going to say anything. If you don't love dogs, I won't judge you, but dogs are amazing. Yes, I'm obsessed with your dog pages. I don't know if you realize, but I think my mom started following you. I'm like, Mom, you have to look
Yes,
at my,
that made me
like,
so excited. I was like, this is awesome.
like, Mom,
And
you need to just watch. Like, you just need to watch all the videos.
yeah,
But thank you so much for coming on.
thank you
It
so
was
much.
such an honor and a pleasure. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and listened. And I already would love to have you back on the podcast for something else, and we could talk about that off the mic and see what we can
Yes.
create together.
Thank you so much for having me, and everybody listening, thanks for tuning in.